The Brave Little Chickpea, a Persian folktale. Level 1, Easy English Story. Once upon a time, there was a husband and wife. They had no children, and they were very sad. More than anything else, they wanted a child of their own. One day, an old dervish came to their little house. He looked at the woman and saw the sadness in her eyes. "My dear," he asked kindly, "why do you look so unhappy?" The woman sighed. "My husband and I have no children," she said. "We have tried everything, but nothing has helped." The old dervish smiled. "Do not worry," he said. "Tonight, put a handful of chickpeas into a bowl of water. Place the bowl beside your bed. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, you will find that the chickpeas have become children." After saying these words, the old dervish quietly walked away. The woman could not stop thinking about his strange advice. She waited impatiently until night came. Before going to bed, she filled a bowl with water, dropped a handful of chickpeas into it, placed it beside her bed, and fell asleep. The next morning, she opened her eyes. She could hardly believe what she saw. The little chickpeas had come to life. They were running around the room, laughing, jumping, and talking all at once. One little chickpea shouted, "Mom, please buy me a pair of shoes." Another cried, "Mom, I need some new clothes." A third one rubbed his little stomach. "Mom, I'm hungry." A fourth called out, "Mom, I'm thirsty. Can I have some water?" The poor woman stood there with her mouth open. She had wished for one child. Instead, she had a whole house full of noisy little children. "Oh dear," she whispered, "this is far too many." She picked up a broom and gently swept all the little chickpeas out into the garden. Then she watered the ground, hoping the chickpeas would grow into green plants instead. But one tiny chickpea was clever. Before the broom reached him, he quickly rolled away and hid in the corner under a carpet. No one noticed him. At noon, the woman prepared lunch for her husband, who was working in the fields. She wrapped the food in a clean cloth and looked around the house. Then she sighed. "I wish I hadn't swept away all those little children," she said sadly. "Who will take this lunch to my husband now?" Just then, a tiny voice came from under the carpet. The little chickpea came out with a big smile and said,
"Mother, don't worry. I'll take Father's lunch to him."
The woman was surprised and very happy. She tied the bundle of food onto the back of their donkey. Then she gently picked up the tiny little fellow and placed him on the donkey. As soon as the donkey started walking, the little chickpea jumped into one of the donkey's ears and sat there comfortably. "Let's go," he said. The donkey happily walked toward the fields. The donkey walked slowly along the dusty road until it reached the fields. The little chickpea's father was working hard under the warm sun. When he looked up, he saw his donkey coming toward him all alone. He looked to the left. He looked to the right. There was no one behind it. "That's strange," he said. He picked up a stick and walked toward the donkey. Just as he was about to tap it, something tiny jumped out of the donkey's ear. It landed softly on the ground. The little fellow smiled and said, "Father, I brought your lunch." The farmer stared in surprise, then his face filled with joy. "So, you are my son," he said. He carefully picked up the tiny child and held him in the palm of his hand. "I've always dreamed of having a son." The little chickpea smiled proudly. The farmer sat down to eat. After a few bites, he sighed. "I only wish you were a little bigger," he said quietly. "Then you could help me collect the money the king owes me." The little chickpea looked up. "What money?" "The king borrowed money from many people," his father explained. He promised to pay us back, but he never did. Not just me, many families are still waiting for their money." The little chickpea stood up. "Don't worry, father. I'll go to the palace. I'll ask the king to return your money and everyone else's." The farmer quickly shook his head. "No, no, the king never listens. The guards won't even let you inside. And if they catch you, they may throw you into prison. Please don't go." But the little chickpea smiled with confidence. "It doesn't hurt to try. I'll be careful." His father knew he could not change the little fellow's mind, so he gently placed him on the ground. "May God protect you," he said. The little chickpea waved goodbye and began his journey. He walked for a long time, across fields, across little bridges, past trees and rivers. At last he reached the king's great palace. Tall walls surrounded it. Strong guards stood at the gate. But the little chickpea was so tiny that no one noticed him. He quietly slipped between the guards' feet. He crossed the courtyard. He climbed the palace steps. Soon he was standing right in front of the king's golden throne. The king was talking to his servants. Suddenly, a loud little voice echoed through the hall. "Your Majesty." The king stopped speaking. "Who said that?" No one answered. Then, at last, the king looked down. There, beside his throne, stood a tiny little boy no bigger than a chickpea. Everyone burst into laughter. The king laughed louder than anyone else. "What a funny little creature," he said. Then he waved his hand. "Give him 1 gold coin and send him away." A servant placed 1 shiny gold coin in front of the little chickpea. The little chickpea folded his arms. He did not touch it. He looked straight at the king and said, "That is not my father's coin. I want the very coin you borrowed from him, and I want every coin that belongs to the people." The servant brought another coin. The little chickpea shook his head. "That isn't my father's coin. A 3rd coin, no. A 4th, no. A 5th, no." Again and again, the servant brought more coins. Again and again, the little chickpea gave the same answer. "I want my father's own coin, and the people's coins too." The king's smile slowly disappeared. His face turned red with anger. He slammed his hand on the arm of his throne and shouted,
"Enough! Throw this annoying fellow into the water tank! Let him stay there forever!"
The servants rushed forward. They grabbed the tiny little hero and carried him away. The servants carried the little chickpea to a large underground water tank. Without saying a word, they threw him into the deep water. Splash! The king smiled. "Now I'll finally have some peace," he said, but the little chickpea was not afraid. As soon as he landed in the water, he laughed. Then he shouted, "Drink, drink, drink it all." Something amazing happened. He began drinking the water. He drank and drank and drank. Soon the water level became lower, then lower still. Before long, the huge water tank was completely empty. The little chickpea's belly grew bigger and rounder until it looked like a large balloon. He climbed out of the empty tank and walked back to the palace. The king was just beginning to relax when he heard the same tiny voice again. "Your Majesty." The king looked down. There stood the little chickpea with his huge round belly. He smiled and said, "Please give me my father's gold coin. And don't forget the people's coins." The king jumped to his feet. "What? You're still alive?" He could hardly believe his eyes. His face turned bright red. "This time," he shouted, "he won't escape." He pointed toward the royal oven. "Throw him into the hot oven. Let him burn to ashes." The servants grabbed the little chickpea once again. They carried him to the blazing oven. They opened the heavy door. The flames danced inside. Without waiting another moment, they threw him in. The door slammed shut. Inside the oven, the little chickpea smiled. He shouted, "Pour, pour, pour it all out." At once, all the water he had swallowed rushed out of his belly. Whoosh! Water flooded the oven. The fire hissed loudly. In only a few seconds, every flame was gone. The oven became cold. The little chickpea laughed. He brushed the ashes from his clothes, jumped out of the oven, and walked straight back to the king. The king had just begun to smile, thinking the problem was over. Then he heard the familiar little voice. "Your Majesty." He slowly looked down. There was the little chickpea again. Safe, dry, smiling. The little hero folded his arms and said, "I have come back. Now please give me my father's gold coin, and return the people's money too." The king covered his face with his hands and whispered,
I can't believe this. No matter what I do, this tiny boy always comes back.
The servants looked at one another. No one knew what to do. The great hall became completely silent. The king sat quietly for a long moment. Then he looked at the tiny boy standing before him. He sighed. "I cannot defeat this little fellow," he said. At last, he gave an order. "Take him to the royal treasury. Let him find his father's gold coin himself. Then perhaps he will finally leave me alone." The servants led the little chickpea to the king's treasure room. Then he said in a loud voice, "Eat, eat, eat it all." At once, something magical happened. He swallowed every gold coin, every shining jewel, every piece of treasure. Soon, the great treasury was completely empty. The little chickpea's round belly became even bigger than before. Then he walked back to the king. With a cheerful smile, he said, "I found them." The king stared at the empty treasure room. He was too shocked to speak. The little chickpea bowed politely and began his journey home. Back at home, his mother had been worried all day. She looked down the road again and again, hoping to see her little son. At last, she saw him coming. She ran to him at once. "My dear child," she cried, "where have you been?" The little chickpea smiled. "I'll tell you everything, mother. But first, please make me a big pot of soup." His mother hurried into the kitchen. Before long, a large pot of hot soup was ready. The little chickpea ate and ate and ate. When he had finished, he took a deep breath. Then something wonderful happened. Out came the gold coins. Out came the shining jewels. Out came all the treasure from the king's palace. His mother could hardly believe her eyes. Just then, his father came home from the fields. He was just as surprised. The little chickpea told his parents everything that had happened at the palace. His father smiled with pride. Then he went through the village and called out, "Everyone who is waiting for money from the king, come to our house." The villagers gathered one by one. Each person received the money that belonged to them. Everyone thanked the little chickpea. Everyone went home smiling. From that day on, no one in the village feared the greedy king anymore. And as for the little chickpea, everyone remembered him as the smallest hero with the biggest courage.
Dear friends, if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel and join our growing community. Your support means a lot and encourages me to create more stories like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.